The son of the dragon, Vlad Dracula. He made invaders fear the road, then filled it with the dead.
On June 18, 1462, Sultan Mehmed II, the renowned conqueror of Constantinople, halted his massive Ottoman army in absolute horror. Marching towards the Wallachian capital of Targoviste, his forces had entered a nightmarish landscape. Before them lay a forest of the Impaled, an estimated 20,000 to 23,844 Ottoman prisoners and local sympathizers hoisted onto wooden stakes, left to rot in the summer heat. The man responsible for this grisly psychological warfare was the Prince of Wallachia, who had launched a daring night attack just hours earlier in a desperate bid to assassinate the Sultan. Outnumbered and facing a superpower, he resorted to an extreme theatre of cruelty to protect his borders. This ruler's name would echo through history, eventually becoming synonymous with absolute terror: Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad III, widely known as Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Dracula, was a voivode, prince of Wallachia, who ruled during three distinct periods: 1448, 1456 to 1462, and briefly in 1476. Born between 1428 and 1431 in Transylvania, often associated with the town of Sighisoara, he was killed in battle in December 1476 or January 1477. Vlad was a Wallachian political and military leader whose primary field was statecraft and warfare in a highly volatile medieval borderland. He is considered profoundly influential for two deeply contrasting reasons. In Eastern Europe, he is remembered as a harsh national hero who fiercely defended Christian Europe against the Ottoman Empire.
Globally, however, his patronymic name, Dracula, cemented his status as the primary inspiration for Bram Stoker's 1897 Gothic novel, forever linking his historical identity to the realm of supernatural fiction. Vlad III was born into a world defined by constant bloodshed, shifting allegiances, and the looming threat of an expanding empire. He was the second legitimate son of Vlad II Dracula, a nobleman who seized the Wallachian throne in 1436. His father's moniker, Dracula, stemmed from his induction into the Order of the Dragon in 1431, a chivalric fraternity founded by Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund in 1408 to defend the Christian cross against the Ottoman Turks. In medieval Romanian, Dracul meant the dragon, making Vlad III Draculia, or son of the dragon. Wallachia was a small principality dangerously wedged between the Catholic Kingdom of Hungary and the Islamic Ottoman Empire.
Growing up, Vlad witnessed a treacherous political environment where Wallachian boyars, nobles, frequently betrayed their princes. The economy was heavily taxed to pay tributes to neighboring powers, leaving a young Vlad acutely aware that survival required ruthlessness and absolute power.
The most defining trauma of Vlad's life occurred in 1442, when he was approximately 11 or 12 years old. To prove his loyalty to the Ottoman Sultan Murad II, Vlad's father was forced to surrender Vlad and his younger brother Radu as royal hostages. The boys were transported to the fortress of Egrigos, where they remained captive until 1448. This 6-year imprisonment profoundly shaped Vlad's psychological and strategic development. While Radu assimilated, eventually becoming a favorite at the Ottoman court, Vlad grew fiercely defiant and developed a burning hatred for his captors. He was educated by the Ottomans, mastering the Turkish language and intimately observing their military tactics. In 1447, while Vlad was still a hostage, tragedy struck. His father and his older brother, Mircea, were assassinated by treacherous Wallachian Goitars supported by the Hungarian leader, John Hunyadi. This betrayal instilled in Vlad a lifelong distrust of the nobility and a singular motivation for vengeance. Vlad's transition from a forgotten hostage to a recognized political figure began in the autumn of 1448. Following the death of his family, the Ottomans sought to install a loyal puppet on the Wallachian throne. At the age of 17, backed by an Ottoman cavalry force, Vlad invaded Wallachia and successfully seized the capital, establishing his first reign. However, this victory was remarkably short-lived. Just 2 months later, the Hungarian-backed rival, Vladislav II, returned with a superior army and ousted him. Forced into exile, Vlad spent the next 8 years wandering through Moldavia and Transylvania, navigating a precarious web of medieval politics. His real rise to recognition occurred when he made a pragmatic pivot, abandoning his Ottoman ties to secure the support of the very Hungarians who had once opposed his family. In 1456, Vlad launched a military campaign, defeated Vladislav II, and reclaimed his throne, initiating his longest and brutal reign. Vlad III's true breakthrough onto the European stage occurred in the winter of 1461–1462, when he openly defied the most powerful empire in the world. For years, Wallachia had been forced to pay an annual tribute of 10,000 gold ducats and surrender 500 boys for the Ottoman Janissary Corps. Believing he had finally consolidated enough internal power, Vlad ceased these payments. When Sultan Mehmed II sent envoys to demand the tribute, Vlad reportedly nailed their turbans to their heads for failing to remove them. He then crossed the frozen Danube River, launching a devastating scorched earth campaign into Ottoman-held Bulgaria. On February 11, 1462, Vlad wrote a boastful letter to King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary, meticulously documenting the massacre. He declared that his forces had killed exactly 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians. This campaign elevated Vlad from a regional prince to a famous crusader. Across Europe, Christian leaders hailed his audacity, bringing Vlad international fame. Vlad's life was defined by intense military and political milestones achieved in a remarkably short time frame. In 1456, upon beginning his second reign, his first major act was a bloody purge of the Wallachian boyars, whom he blamed for his family's murder. Hundreds were impaled, and survivors were forced into slave labor to build Poenari Castle. His domestic policy focused on centralizing authority, wiping out crime, and boosting commerce by heavily taxing foreign merchants. His most famous military achievement remains the night attack at Târgoviște on June 17, 1462. Leading a force of roughly 24,000 to 30,000 men, Vlad infiltrated Sultan Mehmed II's camp of an estimated 60,000 to 150,000 troops seeking to decapitate the Ottoman leadership. Though the assassination failed, the ensuing chaos inflicted massive casualties. Despite these victories, Vlad was forced to retreat, and in late 1462, King Matthias Corvinus imprisoned him on fabricated charges of treason. Vlad languished in captivity at Visegrad for 12 to 14 years. Released in 1475, he seized the throne for a third time in November 1476, but was killed weeks later. Vlad is primarily famous for the staggering scale and horrifying nature of his cruelty, specifically his favored method of execution, impalement. While impalement was a known medieval punishment, Vlad elevated it to an industrial scale, earning the posthumous nickname Szepes, the Impaler, around 1550. Historians estimate his total victim count ranges between 40,000 and 100,000 people over a mere 6-year period. His victims included Ottoman soldiers, treacherous boyars, foreign merchants, and entire villages of peasants. What truly solidified his fame was the advent of the printing press. Disgruntled Transylvanian Saxon merchants, whom Vlad had heavily punished, authored heavily sensationalized pamphlets detailing his atrocities. In the late 15th century, these stories spread rapidly across Germany and Russia, becoming some of the world's first mass-produced horror stories. Consequently, his name became synonymous with bloodlust, expanding his reputation far beyond the borders of Wallachia. Behind the legends of monstrosity lay a highly intelligent, pragmatic, and psychologically scarred ruler. Vlad was motivated by a desperate desire for absolute sovereignty and a deep-seated paranoia born from a childhood spent as a hostage. He believed the only way to govern an unstable borderland was through total, paralyzing fear. His leadership style was remarkably disciplined, autocratic, and devoid of mercy. Contemporaries described him as a man of intense focus, utilizing a hands-on approach to warfare, where he frequently fought on the front lines and dressed in Ottoman disguises to spy on enemy camps. Religiously, he was born into the Eastern Orthodox faith, but historians debate whether he strategically converted to Roman Catholicism to secure his release from Hungarian captivity. His primary strength was his brilliant grasp of psychological warfare. His greatest weakness, however, was his inability to compromise. His sheer brutality alienated his own subjects, leaving him politically isolated. Vlad the Impaler's reign was as much a story of political failure as it was of military defiance. His absolute refusal to tolerate dissent created powerful enemies at home and abroad. His conflicts with the wealthy Saxon merchants of Brasov and Sibiu proved disastrous, as they used their economic and literary power to destroy his reputation internationally. His most critical political failure occurred in 1462. Despite his tactical brilliance during the night attack, he could not stop the Ottoman advance. The Sultan simply placed Vlad's brother, Radu the Handsome, on the throne. Radu offered the Wallachian nobility peace and stability, leading the boyars to abandon Vlad.
Fleeing to Hungary, Vlad expected a hero's welcome, but was instead arrested by Matthias Corvinus, who used forged letters to frame Vlad as an Ottoman collaborator. Modern historians debate the ethics of his rule. While some view him as a Machiavellian necessity, modern scholars frequently criticize his excessive sadism, noting that his purges severely destabilized his nation's long-term economic and political growth.
Vlad's actions had immediate and profound consequences for the geopolitics of 15th century Europe. In the short term, his fierce resistance disrupted Sultan Mehmed II's plans to advance deeper into Central Europe, buying the Christian kingdoms crucial time to fortify their borders. His use of scorched earth tactics and biological warfare, purposely sending diseased individuals into Ottoman camps, changed how regional forces approached asymmetric combat. In the long term, Vlad's cultural impact far outstripped his political achievements. In the 19th century, Romanian nationalists resurrected his image, stripping away the horror to present him as the ultimate symbol of anti-corruption, law, and national independence.
Culturally, his impact is globally unprecedented. Although completely disconnected from the folkloric vampire myths of the Balkans, his name and geographic origin provided the perfect historical anchor for Bram Stoker, forever altering global media, literature, and the entertainment industry. Today, Vlad the Impaler occupies a deeply paradoxical space in global memory. In Romania, he remains a highly respected historical figure. Streets are named after him, his face appears on monuments in Bucharest and Sighișoara, and political commentators sometimes ironically invoke his name as a needed cure for modern political corruption. Conversely, to the rest of the world, Vlad III is inseparable from Count Dracula. The lucrative Dracula tourism industry in Transylvania, centering on sites like Bran Castle, which Vlad never actually owned, brings millions of dollars to the Romanian economy annually. The narrative of his life has been adapted into hundreds of films, books, and documentaries, constantly shifting between depictions of him as a bloodthirsty tyrant or a supernatural monster. His legacy proves how easily historical fact can be eclipsed by myth, transforming a 15th century geopolitical strategist into the most recognizable cinematic villain in human history. The true history of Vlad the Impaler is a chilling study of the mechanics of power, survival, and fear. His life reveals the desperate extremes to which a leader will go when trapped between warring empires and internal betrayal. Vlad was a product of a merciless age,
a man who survived childhood captivity and the murder of his family, only to become a mirror reflecting the brutality of his time. He weaponized terror not simply out of madness, but as a calculated instrument of statecraft designed to ensure sovereignty. While modern cop culture has reduced him to a caped aristocrat drinking blood in the shadows, the historical Vlad III stands as a much more terrifying testament to human nature.
He reminds us that the darkest monsters in history are not born from supernatural curses, but from the very real, ruthless pursuit of power and survival.